This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I am your host, Noah Taluki, and on today's episode, I recap my experience at the Pro Football Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony and the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio, as I wrapped up my internship this past week over in Canton. Also, Avila fired by the Tigers. I'm going to break that down and explain what I think the next step should be for your Detroit Tigers. And of course, the Lions debuted in Hard Knocks on HBO. I want to talk about the show and really the positives to take away from this, as I think they're building a really, really strong foundation as a team in Detroit. And joining us later will be Steve Wyche from the NFL Network. He's going to talk about, he was there at enshrinement at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll talk a little bit about that. And also the Lions-Falcons matchup, because Steve is the Falcons preseason voice for their TV for preseason. So really looking forward to that interview later on in the program. But hopefully everybody has had a great last 2 weeks. I know it's been really, really tough for me to record, especially last week because of all the craziness and the busyness that was happening during enshrinement. I was kind of running around doing all kinds of different things, helping with the media and all that. And I actually was able to be in the press box for the game. The Raiders played the Jaguars for the NFL's first preseason game last week. The Raiders won handily, and it was a really, really cool experience to be up there with all those media members. I was in the press box with a lot of the national guys, David Ziegler, the Raiders GM, John Carroll grad as well. He was up there, got to talk to him for a little bit. So it was just it was really cool to kind of, be in the presence of all these guys and work an NFL game. That was a dream of mine for a long time to be a part of it. And it certainly was worth it for sure. And then Friday last week was the Gold Jacket Dinner. And that is an event that happens in downtown Canton at the Canton Civic Center every year. And, the public can buy tables as well. But, basically it's a big dinner where all of the Hall of Famers that are there that week show up, and they get to congratulate the new class of 2022 this year over at the dinner. And it was hosted by Rich Eisen of the NFL Network as well. And this is where they officially get their gold jacket. So they were given it to them by the person that presented them. So, like, for example, Tony Baselli, the first Jaguar to ever go in, his presenter, the guy who gave him his jacket, Mark Brunell, quarterback coach of the Lions, and a guy that was on Hard Knocks in this first episode. So it was cool. And Steve Mariucci was there. I met him as former Detroit Lions head coach and a member of NFL Network, and being in the presence a lot, because one of the rooms that I was in was the room where all the Hall of Famers were. So that was really cool to experience that and be in the presence of greatness, be in the presence of excellence. I mean, I'm looking around, I passed by Jerry Rice and guys like Warren Sapp and Michael Irvin, Chris Carter, Steve Young. I mean, Calvin Johnson was there as well. So it was a really, really surreal experience just to be able to be in the presence of legends in the NFL community that, I grew up watching, especially like a guy like Calvin Johnson. And the cool moment about the dinner too was each of the Hall of Famers were that were there. So there was 109 guys out of the 185 that are living that actually came to Canton for this weekend's festivities, and this is actually a really high number. And it was cool because Dan Fouts was kind of the MC of that segment of the dinner, and one by one he introduced each of the Hall of Famers as they kind of split off into different sections, and then they kind of formed a line where they would, in kind of like a tunnel, if you will, to congratulate each guy. And then later, after everyone was announced, the class of 2022, each guy was announced. Dick Vermeil came in, Tony Baselli, and then they were all kind of giving hugs and high fives to all of these guys that were in a line together. So that was there was goosebumps for me in that moment for sure, watching that. With all of those, the 8 men that are very deserving of this honor to be in the Hall of Fame. And then Saturday was the big day, enshrinement. The weather held off. On Thursday, there was actually a little bit of a rain delay The game ended up starting at 8:40 when it was supposed to start at 8. Thought it could have been a little similar at enshrinement, but it was the rain held off. It was pretty cloudy, but the sun poked through a little bit towards the end. But hearing the guys' speeches, and if anyone out there wanted to go back and watch these speeches, I definitely would. They're out there on YouTube, but very touching, very very touching stories. And Bryant Young. The old San Francisco 49er, his was probably the most touching in my opinion, just because he talked all about his son who passed away, and a few years ago, and just the impact that it had on him, and how his favorite number was the number 22, class of 2022. So it was he got pretty emotional. That was probably the best speech in my opinion. All week was, or all day was Bryant Young's. And I thought Dick Vermeil's, I thought he was going to, be really emotional in his speech, but he actually wasn't. He was really, really happy. Of course, if anyone knows out there, Dick Vermeil was a very emotional guy, really wore his emotions on his sleeves, cried a lot, as they would say. But he was good. He thanked a lot of people. I think his speech was about 24 minutes or so, the longest by far of anyone's. And but he thanked pretty much everyone that was in his coaching life. So that was really cool to see. And of course he went last. So save the best for last, if you will, with Coach Vermeil. But overall, it was an incredible weekend. I had never actually been to the ceremony. I'd never been to the game before. I never even watched the enshrinement or the game before, because it's typically during my family reunion. But this year, I was able to obviously watch because of the internship, working it, and I was up in the press box as well for enshrinement, and it was quite incredible, to say the least. And being surrounded, like I said, being surrounded by greatness. And internship ended earlier this week. Bittersweet, I'm definitely gonna miss it over there, and I'm really happy I was able to share a lot of my experiences with you guys over the last couple months, because it's definitely a really, really great place. And, if anyone out there is listening and has never visited Canton, it is definitely worth it. And, even outside the Hall of Fame, there's actually some cool things to do in Canton that many people don't even know about. Some really cool restaurants and some things to do, places to walk around. So, even just besides the Hall of Fame, there's cool things to do in Canton, which is about an hour south of Cleveland, and about 3.5 hour drive from Detroit. So, but it was absolutely incredible. And I'm very, very fortunate and blessed to have been able to be a part of this internship experience at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Hopefully 2023, and there's been talk already about it a little bit, Buddy Parker, the Lions coach in the 1950s who won 2 championships, 1952 and 1953 with Bobby Lane as quarterback. There's talk that he might get in. So, a lot of people say Calvin might be the last Hall of Famer the Lions have in a while. Just wait. Buddy Parker might be the guy next year from the 1950s Lions. In my opinion, the greatest coach in Lions history, a player's coach. I could go on and on with some stories about him that I've learned over the last couple months. But be on the lookout. 2023, a Lion might be inducted. He might be the coach that gets his he's long overdue for it, but very well deserved. So hopefully 2023, next year, Buddy Parker, Lions coach, gets in. All right. So some Tiger news from this week. Avila officially fired by the Tigers, Chris Ilitch, in a statement. And, it's interesting because I was on social media a couple days ago, and, I just saw this random press release, and I'm thinking, what is this? And I see it's from the Tigers, and it just came at a weird hour of the day. I think it was like around 4 or 5 o'clock. And it said, Tigers make leadership change in baseball operations. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? And then I see the headline. The Detroit Tigers announced they have parted ways with Executive Vice President and General Manager Al Avila, effective immediately. And I thought, wow, what great timing. I thought at this point they were just going to wait to the end of the season, but they decided to do it in mid-August. And it looks like, according to the press release, Chris Ilitch said, once I decided to make a change, I sat down with Al and thanked him for his nearly 22 years of service to our organization. Because remember, he was here with Dombrowski and even before that. Al's loyalty and dedication has served as an example to all during his time as a leader in our baseball operations department. I will oversee the search process for the next baseball operations leader in collaboration with several members of our baseball and business operations executive team. I want to reestablish our momentum and progress towards building a winning team, and I am driven to find a talented executive to help us do that. They'll be entering an organization with many foundational elements in place and an exciting path forward. Tigers fans deserve winning teams, and I'm highly focused and committed to deliver that to the people of Detroit and Michigan. With new baseball operations leadership will come a fresh perspective toward evolving our roster and maximizing our talent to reach our objectives. To be clear, our goals are to build a team that wins on a sustainable basis, qualifies for the playoffs, and ultimately wins a World Series. Okay, Chris. Well, did you think about saying that maybe did you think about that at all in 2015 when you hired Al Avila? Because remember, a couple months ago you said it was great. Rebuild was fine. You know, the team is doing well. I'm satisfied with our progress. I think he said that at the Detroit Economics Club luncheon that they do every year. Now all of a sudden, hey, it's enough. Al is gone. I find it interesting too that Al had a statement. Typically, when you get fired, I feel like you don't really have an official statement from the team, but basically just says, you know, I gave my heart and soul to the franchise. Want to thank the Ilitches. I'll cherish our friendships and successes that we all celebrated. To Tiger fans, you're the best, and you deserve a winner. I wish the results would have been better this season, but no, there's a lot to look forward to in the coming years. God bless everyone. You know, I think this was obviously the right move. The Tigers definitely needed to fire Al Avila. I just think that this rebuild kind of backfired. But the positive thing is, there are positives. There is a lot of young talent. There is. You think about, and a lot of these guys are either injured or they're struggling right now. There's obviously Spencer Torkelson, who's down in the minors. By the way, he's hitting 186 with Toledo right now. Not good. Not good. That kid better find his confidence fast. And there's other guys that are hurt. Casey Mize, Matt Manning's been hurt. Alex Faedo. So my point is, Riley Green, obviously the center fielder. There is young talent. I just think that they've been mismanaged. They've been rushed. I think that's part of the reason why some of these pitchers have struggled and have been getting hurt, been rushed. I think Torkelson might have been a little bit rushed. I think the player development plan for the Tigers needs to improve. It was obvious when they got rid of Paredes. They thought, oh, we're going to get Austin Meadows, Isaac Paredes. That's okay. We don't need him anymore. But Paredes has found his step and some power with the Rays that he never found in Detroit. He's hitting home runs left and right. Didn't do that in Detroit. Was not known as a power hitter. So I think there are some pieces here with the Tigers. There are. I'm not saying that it's loaded with pieces. There's definitely guys that they have to get rid of. AAA roster, as some people say. Miguel Cabrera, we'll see if he even plays next year. Now his status is up in the air. But there's pieces in place. They need someone that understands talent and understands player development. Put these guys on a plan to make them successful, not to fail. Al's player development plan was not very good. It's very obvious. So being able to mature these guys, I think will go a long way. Who should the next GM be? That's a tough question. There's rumors out there that Theo Epstein should be the new GM. Theo Epstein is a guy that's working for Major League Baseball right now and has resurrected two historically doorstep franchises. He resurrected the Boston Red Sox in the 2000s, won their first World Series in 80-some years. Then he did it with Chicago, with the Cubs, won in 2016. This guy has been proven to win with teams that are perennial doormats. And Theo Epstein would be perfect. Okay, that's fantasy. That's not happening. I would love for Theo Epstein to be the Tigers general manager, but it's not happening. And as much of the rumors that you hear, I don't think that it's going to happen. It's easier said than done. Who do you think? Who is my guy to be the GM? At least right now. I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not an expert on who the hot GM candidates are out there, but from an organizational standpoint, I think you promote AJ Hinch to general manager. I do. Remember a couple years, this was right when AJ Hinch was hired. I had Jake Biding on the podcast. Jake Biding is a former teacher of mine here at John Carroll who spent 6 or 7 years in the Astros organization as their strength and conditioning coach, who basically helped his 2017 was his last year with them. That was the year they won the World Series. He basically was there with all of those Astros players throughout he watched them grow up basically. And he got to know AJ Hinch very well. And he said on the podcast, AJ is unique because not only does he have the coaching experience, but he has experience in the front office. And he's a very, very good people person and knows how to get along and really knows the game. I think the key is he's had front office experience before. I trust AJ Hinch with talent. I don't understand why Chris just doesn't give him the GM role and the coach role. There's not many guys that can handle that, as proven in football and some other sports. But I think AJ Hinch, in my opinion, is a guy that can handle that because AJ is a very smart guy. And I think he's just dealt a bad hand here. I don't think all of these decisions are his issue. I think he has some good coaches on his staff as well, like Chris Fetter, the pitching coach. I really think if you promote AJ Hinch to general manager, he knows player development. I think because I don't know if that was really his say. If he had, if that was the final call for him to get his system in there with player development. I like the idea of having just coaches focus on coaching, general managers focus on general managing. But I think this for the Tigers, at least at this point, because I want to keep AJ Hinch. I don't want AJ Hinch to go off. I still think he's a great coach. I don't want him to go to LA with the Angels or anything like that. I think he should be in complete command of this. And I think he should be trusted enough where he can really take the reins and steer the ship. I would say AJ Hinch should be the GM. Give him complete control and re-resurrect this thing. Because then he'll know I think he'll know what to do with these young guys and put them on the right plan, get the minor league system in order. I think he's good with at least knowing who to draft. So AJ Hinch, that's my new candidate for Tigers GM. I think it should happen. But Avila obviously did not work, and even after a 78-win season last year, the Tigers are well below 500 this year, and very obvious that it did not work. Despite Chris Ilitch saying a few months ago that everything was going fine, he's satisfied. Nobody can be satisfied with that, especially after this season. People were saying 80-plus wins. I said 80-plus wins. I thought, especially with the Meadows trade, they were going to get something big. It hasn't happened. Now we're going to move on to Hard Knocks with the Lions just before we get to our interview with Steve Wyche of NFL Network a little bit later on. So Hard Knocks. And look, before we start talking about Hard Knocks, I don't like getting into a bunch of training camp news. I think it's kind of boring. I just kind of wait to start, during the season, during the regular season. We'll analyze a little bit of the preseason here and there, especially in the next couple weeks. But I'm not going to bore anyone with, Quintez Cephas made a one-handed catch in training camp. No one cares. I'm only going to talk about maybe injuries. Like if there's a major injury in camp, how this is going to affect the rest of the season. I'm not doing a deep dive in a training camp. But I will talk about Hard Knocks because I thought, and I watch the show every year, and I'm a big fan of it. We had Chris Willis on a few weeks ago from NFL Network, NFL Films, talk about the show. And I love the first episode. I got HBO Max for a month. I'm just paying $9.99 a month. I'm fine with that. I didn't want to have to pay, but I just thought, well, Might as well, just for a month, $10. That's not a big deal. But gosh, it was entertaining. I will say though, I would have liked to see, and I know there's 5 episodes, so we might see this later, but I would have liked to see a little bit more of what happens in the meetings. So in those positional meetings, in those coaches meetings, there wasn't enough of that for me. There was a little bit with the team meeting, that started off with Dan Campbell's message to the team, his 3 rules or whatever it was, don't be late, come to camp in shape, and don't be overweight, and some of those other rules, which I thought were good. But I think I just want to see a little bit more of what happens in the meetings. Entertaining, Aiden Hutchinson singing in front of the team. I thought that was pretty cool. Malcolm Rodriguez doing the salsa dance. Remember, guys, this is a reality show, so don't think that the Lions are doing this stuff all the time and they're not focusing on football. This is all edited. Of course, there's other things out there, that they're getting out of football business. This is stuff that happens all the time in the NFL with rookies, and they got to say their name, school, signing bonus, and sing in front of the team, sing the fight song, whatever it is. This is just typical rookie stuff that happens at every NFL training camp. Nothing special to the Lions, but it was cool to see Hutchinson sing, and they did the little feature on his family, which I thought was great. Of course, I mentioned it before. I followed Aiden's career since high school. I played against him in high school, and his rise at Michigan for sure. So big Hutchinson fan. My uncle got me a jersey of his for my birthday a few weeks ago. So shout out to my Tito Louie for giving me my new Hutchinson jersey. I needed a new jersey, and I decided to get Hutchinson because he's my new favorite Lion. Matthew Stafford, he's going to be my all-time favorite Lion, but he's not on the team anymore. I need to root for a guy that's on the team, and Hutchinson's going to be my guy. I thought that segment was great. The other thing that I noticed, too, is Dan Campbell has a lot of Bill Parcells in him. He was a Parcells guy when he played for the Cowboys as a tight end. Moved over to Miami when that Bill Parcells was actually an advisor for them. Bill Parcells was the one that helped him get his coaching start. Then he went over to the Saints with guess who? Sean Payton, who is a Bill Parcells disciple. There is a lot of Parcells connections, not only with, in the coaching tree aspect, but in just his attitude. Parcells would be saying the same stuff to motivate players. And it's very obvious that Dan Campbell cares a lot. They had that segment where he was breaking the team down and he said, all I think about is you guys. All I care about is you guys. And he was getting a little emotional. And I think that's genuine. I don't think it's one of those things where he's just doing it for the cameras. Because I think from day one, I said Dan Campbell is a very genuine guy. And I don't think he's faking that at all. I think he really cares about his guys. And when players see that, they want to run through a brick wall for that guy. It's evident. Look at Jamal Williams when he broke the team down there. This guy was crying too. I mean, these guys are so emotionally invested in this thing. You can tell, whether you're a Lions fan or not, there is a new energy in the building. This is something that I don't think we've seen with this team in a few decades. When was the last time they had this much juice, this much attention? I think it's all very well deserved, and but the one thing though, it has to you have to win. If this team wins, they're going to be remembered by the city of Detroit forever. If this team loses, the media is going to get on them, fans are going to get on them, because look at all this hype that they had, all these guys loving each other and the team atmosphere, having fun, being yourself, complete opposite of Matt Patricia, very player friendly, and it just backfires. They better win. They better win. Some people are saying 8 or 9 wins this year. Ooh. We'll see, because at least in the parts they showed, it seems like it was definitely a more improved Lions team. But hopefully in the next couple of segments they'll be focusing on some of the other players and coaches as well. I liked how they focused a little bit more on the coaches and how they have 80 plus years of a lifetime of experience playing in the NFL and coaching in the NFL. Also, the Deuce Staley and Aaron Glenn thing was really cool. They're just getting on each other at practice, going back and forth, offense versus defense. And it just reminded, them of their playing days, basically. Deuce with the Eagles, Aaron Glenn with the Jets as a cornerback, and a couple other teams. That was cool to see. You could see that not only the players are invested, but the coaches are invested. Dan Campbell even said, I wanted guys that believed in the same message as me. And they just so happen to be former players. These guys are buying in to Dan Campbell. Players buying into the system. At least they have that part checked off. The next part is, what are they going to do with that? They're going to win. Is the offensive scheme going to be better? Is the line going to push people around? Is Swift going to, is he going to be running the football like crazy? Seems like they will be more of a run first football team just because of the lack of weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark probably won't get it done. Run first football team with a top 10 offensive line in the league. That's what I think teams should be watching out for in the week in this game against Atlanta in preseason number 1. And joining us now here on Open Mic Night is Steve Wyche of NFL Network. He is also the preseason voice of the Atlanta Falcons, who the Detroit Lions take on later this week. Steve, thank you so much for joining us here.
Noah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you inviting me.
So, of course, Steve, you were at enshrinement at the Pro Football Hall of Fame this past weekend doing all kinds of coverage, excellent coverage, by the way, on NFL Network and doing in-stadium interviews as well. There was a lot of moments from this weekend. What do you think was your favorite moment and one that really stood out to you?
Whoa. I mean, there's a lot. I've been doing this now, I think, for 8 or 9 years. There's always multiple moments on multiple days, right? You have the game day on the Thursday now. And, just spending that day with Hall of Famer, Aeneas Williams. Aeneas was in the first class, I believe, in 2014 that I started working with the Hall of Fame and the NFL Network on our joint projects together and things like that. He's just such a quality human being. So that part was great. A little crazy with the rain, delaying the game a little bit. And then the next day, that Friday, the night of the gold jacket ceremony, the NFL Network, we did a lot of our shooting from the lobby of the Hall of Famers Hotel. And it's just amazing when I look around and I see, okay, to my right is Carl Eller, to my left is Jackie Slater. Here's Darryl Green. Oh, look, there's Jim Kelly. I've got all these people sitting next to me. And not only me just kind of fanboying out a little bit, but also seeing how much these guys understand that they are 362, that group there was a living member of 362 players, coaches, and contributors in the Pro Football Hall of Fame out of the more than probably 30,000 people who have participated in this great sport at some time. So just seeing their appreciation for how rare of air they're breathing is absolutely immeasurable. But of course, on the enshrinement day, Bryant Young's speech, I knew the story of his son Colby dying. He's told it to me. But to expose himself and his family on a forum like that, behind the mic, on his special day, my God, I mean, I was up on stage. I don't know if there was a dry eye on that stage, those Hall of Famers. And after he finished, when he was kind of standing backstage, how so many guys lined up just to come up and say, wow, it was really, it's one of those things where, it's so humanizing and we all can feel it, whether we enjoy sports or not. It hits and shows us the fragility of life and how vulnerable we all are and how we need to appreciate every day.
And, I think a lot of people thought of BY as they call him, BY, a kind of like an even keel kind of guy. So to see that those emotions pour out was definitely incredible. I think, in my opinion, was the highlight of the week for sure. And I know that he was a coach for the Falcons for a couple years, I believe, defensive line. When you were covering the Falcons, did you get a chance to get to know him a lot during that time as well?
Well, I was at the NFL Network then. And, so I wasn't around the team that much. That was during the Dan Quinn era. He's been with Dan Quinn a lot at University of Florida, places like that. So I didn't really know Bryant Young except watching him from afar as a player. And my first introduction to him personally was when we did the door knock. When I was with Charles Haley his former teammate when he knocked on his door last winter to notify him that he had been selected to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
It's just a special moment, especially how they redid the knock this year. Instead of, having the president, Jim Porter, come up and knock on the door, it was, a fellow Hall of Famer knocking on the other door of the current Hall of Famer. So I thought that was a really, really nice new twist this year. So switching gears now to this week's game against the Falcons versus the Lions. Hard Knocks, the first episode came out yesterday. Very exciting for Detroit. I have not seen this much excitement, Steve, in a very long time with this team. I know you watched the first episode. You're used to Hard Knocks with the Falcons. They've been on before. What did you think of that first episode? There was a lot of entertaining moments in it, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. As someone who goes around the league and deals with all 32 teams and has watched Hard Knocks for years, it was great television, right? Great energy. You got Dan Campbell, as I tweeted, starting off the show with some basically John Wick references where we go out and we, put our claws on the throats of our opponent, drag them to the deep water and drown them. Deuce Staley, the assistant head coach, running backs coach, jaw jacking with Aaron Glenn. I'm like, that's great television, right? That's great television. But then also I'm looking at it as a seasoned, inexperienced NFL reporter, like, well, that stuff really, how does it really go over with the players? Right? They love it initially. Okay, my coach is doing up downs with me. He's down. He's motivating us. But you know what? Over a certain number of weeks or months, that stuff's still hitting. And if it's still hitting, that means he's really registering with the players. And it really matters. And a lot of it comes down to wins and losses. And again, it is highly entertaining. He has got a great staff, because some of the people he didn't show, they showed all the former players, but like their secondary coach, Arby Pleasant, that guy's going to be a head coach within the next 5 years. I mean, he has a fantastic staff. So I'm looking forward to the next couple episodes. I'm looking forward to the Falcons preseason game against them Friday night. But I also want to see how kind of, who Dan Campbell is, because he's 100% him. How long it registers with these guys, if he and his coaches, sit there and jaw jack all through practice instead of mainly focusing on what needs to be done play to play. And again, remember, this is edited, right? This is edited to see what we saw. So we may only have seen snippets of this and that. So I may be speaking a little bit out of turn. But, in speaking to some players and folks around today, they're kind of like, yeah, entertaining, but in terms of winning football games, it's not really the way. So keep in mind, all that stuff is edited for our entertainment. That might not be telling the full truth of what's going on up there in Dearborn.
So I know there's, like I mentioned, there's just so much excitement around this team with Hard Knocks and a guy like Dan Campbell as the leader, Aiden Hutchinson as the new rookie, the second overall pick. I've seen some people out there predict the Lions maybe go have 8 or 9 wins, that could be like the ceiling for them. I mean, what do you think the ceiling for this team in year 2 of Dan Campbell is?
There's been people predicting 8 or 9 wins for Lions for a long time. This is not. Look, I think the Lions are like the team everybody wants to cheer for, right? They're Charlie Brown who keeps lining up and trying to kick the ball, only to have the ball pulled away from them right when they get to it. It's hard to tell, because the division, the NFC North, does not look as daunting as it has over the past few years. The Bears, they look like they're in a total teardown and rebuild. The Packers, Aaron Rodgers is great. That defense is great. They're clearly the kings of the division right now. The Vikings have a new coach, Kevin O'Connell. To me, they look like a team that could be a sleeper that no one's really talking about enough. But why can't the Lions? Why can't the Lions show up and do something? So we'll see. It all depends on Jared Goff. It all depends on their ability to get teams off the field on defense. That's something they just could not do, but they competed now. Every team that played them knew that they had been in a freaking fight, and that is a great foundation to lay. As they keep on saying, with their grit. But there's only so long that grit is going to keep you competitive. You got to start turning that into wins.
I'm curious to see how much you know about Ben Johnson, the new Lions offensive coordinator. Never been a coordinator before, but a guy that Jared Goff loves. And TJ Hawkinson has said that he is really a real supporter of him in his offense. I don't know how much you know about it, but talk to me a little bit about what you know and how you think Goff and some of these other weapons will fit into it.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they're going to be a run-first football team. They're not going to, they don't have the types of receivers that are going to, scare everybody to death. Amon St. Brown's a really good player. Do I have the right St. Brown? Yes, I think. I think his brother's with the Packers, or was with the Packers. Yeah. But they've got a couple nice players, but they're going to have to run the football. I mean, that is who they are. That's what they want to be. That's how you set up Jared Goff is on the run action. So we'll see how the play call look. I mean, first-time play callers, you have to get into a rhythm of calling plays and getting it done under the clock and making sure you and your quarterback are on the same page. Are you going to be conservative? Are you going to be aggressive? Last year they had a first-time play caller, Anthony Lynn, even though he'd been coaching a long time. And they had to move on from him during the season because things weren't working there. So there's always, we'll see. He's got good support. Like I said, that staff is really, really good. So they're going to help him get through what he has to go through. He's got to get the best out of Jared Goff. This is the make or break year for Jared Goff. And this team's going to go as Jared Goff goes. If he's out there turning the ball over and not putting points on the board, then the Lions are going to be who they've been.
And there's no backup, really. Tim Boyle and David Blau are probably not going to get the job done as well. So nobody's really pushing Goff at this point, for sure. Talking to Steve Wyche, by the way, of NFL Network and the Falcons preseason voice. So we're going to talk about Falcons now, of course. New quarterback Marcus Mariota replacing the longtime QB Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Calvin Ridley suspended for the season because of the gambling. But they also have some weapons, some young weapons. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, I know I've seen you tweeting about as well. How do you think these young weapons are going to fit with new quarterback Marcus Mariota?
We'll find out. I mean, look, Drake London is like as big as Calvin Johnson. He's a big target, as is Kyle Pitts. They're both players that pre-snap are going to move around a lot. They're going to try to find matchups with them because they're both like 6'4" and 6'5". They've got catch radius. But when you watch them, their feet, Drake London's a basketball player too. His feet are like a running back. So he can route guys up. He's just not a big dude who's going to catch balls, in congested areas. He can route guys up and go. He's also someone who can catch and break tackles. And so is Kyle Pitts. And that's what they're going to need this year because it's going to be a quick to intermediate passing game. The offensive line isn't great, but the fact that Marcus Mariota is mobile, right? They're going to roll the pocket. They're going to move the pocket, try to help out their offensive line, to try to do some things to open up the field when possible. That's what we're going to see what this team is about. But they're going to be nothing if they can't run the football. This offense is based off of running the football. And that's what the questions about the offensive line come into play. Plus, Cordero Patterson, he cannot carry the ball as much as he did last year. He wore down as the season went on. I think he had 200-plus carries. They went out and got Damian Williams, who, we saw him have a great Super Bowl with the Chiefs. He's bounced around to a couple teams. And then who's going to be the other guy to rotate in? Could it be the rookie Tyler Algier out of Brigham Young, who was just a fantastic collegiate player? Could it be Kadri Allison, who's been on the team for a couple of years? They know who and what he is. The one thing with the Falcons at their skill positions, even though they got Drake London, they got Brian Edwards from the Raiders, they've got to get faster. They did not have speed last year, not just a wide receiver, but at running back. And in the NFL, if you don't have a guy who can take a 6-yard play and make it a 30-yard play, you are not going to put your offense in scoring position.
What have you seen from Desmond Ridder this season or this training camp as well? Is he a guy that could push maybe for the starting job if Mariota starts to struggle?
Well, if Mariota starts to struggle, they're going to put Ridder in. I mean, they've got to find out if he can play. He's a rookie. There's a lot of things he has to figure out. So he's going to get a lot of reps this preseason. The one difference you see between Marcus and Ridder is not afraid to pull the trigger on the deep ball. Not that Marcus is, but he understands the concepts of this offense, having played for Arthur Smith before, that it is an intermediate, quick passing game with the opportunity to occasionally go deep. Ridder likes to get rid of that bad boy and go. Now, are they always connecting? Not always. So we'll see in the preseason if that works. But Ridder's got to get ready as soon as possible because we know Marcus Mariota's had durability issues. Their first 7 games are as brutal as any team faces in the NFL. So I think that's another thing that gives Marcus the edge going in. He's experienced. this and that. It is not the type of schedule you want to throw a rookie into because, I mean, it is the vicious games and really tough road games like week 2 at the Rams. So, you know, Ritter looks good. Everything you hear about him, he's poised, getting guys in and out of the huddle, recognizing things at the line of scrimmage. But he's yet to face all kind of movement against a real opposing defense. And that's always, you know, kind of the harbinger when you put a rookie in to start is what is his recognition? How well can you run the ball to protect it? How good is your defense to maybe get some takeaways and generate some extra possessions?
How about AJ Terrell? I know you tweeted out about that matchup with Drake London. A tall guy with long arms, be able to break up those passes. Like a guy who really seems like he's going to be coming into his own this season.
Well, I mean, the dude was a second-team All-Pro in his second year in the league. You know, for a defense that wasn't very good last year. So for him to get recognized like that for a team that really didn't, you know, register shows you how talented he is. Now, last year, he didn't get targeted very much. The big question is, how good is he really when teams weren't really throwing at him? Well, the great ones teams don't throw at. Darrelle Revis, he does not have, like, Hall of Fame stats, but he is a first-round Hall of Famer because when he was on the field, it was 10 on 10. Right? You didn't bother with Revis. Wherever he was, you stayed away from him. Maybe A.J. Terrell gets more balls thrown his way this year because you have Casey Hayward, the veteran, on the other side. But this dude's a complete player. I mean, he'll come up and he'll force against the run. He's a willing tackler. He'll take on the big receivers. He'll take on the small receivers. And he's somebody who works at his craft. You know, I live in Los Angeles. I watch Jalen Ramsey and the Rams a lot. And like Jalen Ramsey works to be as great as he is. And A.J. Terrell has got that same DNA. You know, he's just not out there floating around on ability and skill. He is learning nuances, leverages. You know, when a guy tries to body him up, you know, which way might he rock and roll this way? So he is a student of the game, and he is one of the best at his position in the league.
Final question for you, Steve, here for the game later this week, Falcons and Lions. What do you think is the biggest thing to watch for both teams?
Well, I mean, for the Lions, it's going to be, you know, offensively. You know, they've got a pretty good offensive line. They've invested in it. Penei Sewell is a legit monster, second-year player. I know the Falcons were interested in him, but he was off the board when they went for Kyle Pitts. But I just want to see how they move the ball. And for the Falcons, you know, I know we talked about their offense. I want to see defensively if these two rookie pass rushers, Arnold Ebiketie and D'Angelo Malone, really generate the types of pressure. Atlanta had just 18 sacks last year. I mean, that is unfathomable to me. That's just more than one sack over 17 games. That's awful. That's embarrassing. I mean, you can't even get a blitz of safeties and linebackers. These are winners. These are guys who won in college, who've looked very good in training camp. They're rotational guys right now. They're not guys who are going to start the game. They're kind of specific pass rushers. But I'm going to keep my eye on them to see if they can win one-on-one. They've got to find guys who can win one-on-one. Because if Atlanta can get to the quarterback with 4 with an occasional blitz, their defense is going to be better than what people think.
Well, with some better weapons on offense for the Lions, DJ Chark and Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, in his second season, it'll be a very interesting task in the defensive backfield for the Falcons, for sure. Steve Wyche of NFL Network and the Falcons preseason voice. You can follow him on Twitter at Wyche89, WYCHE89. Thank you again, Steve. Really appreciate the time.
Appreciate you, Noah.
Big thanks to Steve Wyche for coming on the podcast. I met him over the weekend as he was doing some work for NFL Network at Enshrinement, and he definitely asked him if he wanted to come on, and he said absolutely. So really happy Steve Wyche was able to join us, and the NFL Network and company just did an excellent job at Enshrinement, and their coverage was awesome. And Steve, I actually. A couple years ago, I attended a PR summit that the Steelers hosted, and he actually spoke at it. And I thought he was great even then. So and his Steve's son actually works at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So a lot of good connections there. Good guy. and Steve Wyche, that's for sure. By the way, before we close out, I do want to give a shout out to our longtime friend of the program, Matt Derry, who actually was on Hard Knocks for a little bit. Matt Derry, if anyone saw the part of Hard Knocks where Dan Campbell was doing the up downs, Derry, the Locked On Lions podcast, the segment where Matt Derry talked about the up downs, how Dan Campbell was doing the up downs, that segment of the podcast was put into Hard Knocks while Dan Campbell was doing the up downs. So if you missed that, go check it out, because that's our friend Matt Derry, who was on just a few weeks ago to celebrate our 100th episode. So his little segment of the Locked On Lions podcast, which is absolutely incredible. Go check that podcast out if you want the latest Lions news. He does a great, great job, phenomenal job. I think it's the best Lions podcast out there, Locked On Lions, and using a little bit of his segment in Hard Knocks. So awesome. He's getting a little limelight over in Allen Park on Hard Knocks. That's for sure. Make sure to check out all the other great content on the podcast network: Doc and Jock, Wrestling Podcast, The Fan Report, Michigan Podcast, all sorts of great content for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and also John Macaroon's coverage with Sports Illustrated and covering the Lions day in and day out. And should be a really exciting time at Ford Field. The one preseason game at Ford Field for the Lions this year before the regular season opener against Philadelphia in early September. Hoping to make it out to Pittsburgh this weekend. Scotty Nelson, U of D Jesuit alum, my classmate, 4-year starter at Wisconsin, undrafted free agent with Seattle. They're playing the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Hoping to go to that game on Saturday and watch him play. Hopefully he makes that 53-man roster in the Pacific Northwest. But thanks again, folks, for tuning in. And make sure to tune in next week only on Open Mic Night.